Awesome. Thank you guys so much. I'm Paige. I'm an addict. And yes, where we're going to be picking up is on page 26, the very top of the page. And it kicks off by saying, a certain American businessman. Now, if we don't know who this is our homie. Well, my homie. It doesn't have to be yours. You get to decide who your homies are. Pick some good homies. Rowland Hazard III. Now, I don't think he said his name like that, but that's how I'm going to say it. Rowland Hazard the third. Because here's the thing, if somebody's got like numbers in their name, oh, you know they got money. And so I want to emphasize that Rowland Hazard, he's a homie and he has got money. He comes from wealth, and yet he is an alcoholic. So it says a certain American businessman, Rowland Hazard, had ability, good sense, and high character. Anyone here feel like that we have some of those things? I don't relate to any of that. But do you guys relate to having ability, good sense, and high character? Like, I am a capable human being. I've got common sense. I'm logical. I'm rational. I'm reasonable. And I have morals and values. Do we relate to that? Can we see ourselves in Rowland? And I cannot see myself in his bank account. I'm just going to throw that out there. Nor the ability, good sense, and high character. But that's me over here. I'm a little chaos gremlin. And it says, for years, he had floundered from one sanitarium to another. So read rehab, treatment center, detox, inpatient facility, so a sober living. Has that been my experience? And I'll be honest with you, I did not do inpatient voluntarily. My only inpatient services were when I was in a psych ward, like a lady, you know, pinkies up, blue grippy socks on. You guys know what I'm saying. But that is a sign that he has the obsession of the mind. And we're going to look at that again and again. The fact that he would have to go to a sanitarium is indicative that he wants to stop, so he's clearly got some sort of allergy. But the fact that he's going to more than one is indicative that he has the obsession of the mind. It says he had then consulted the best-known American psychiatrist. So he is visiting and seeking the best of the best of the best in the United States, and he's got money to throw at this thing. And none of it worked. He had then gone to Europe, placing himself in the care of a celebrated physician, the psychiatrist Dr. Jung. And Dr. Jung is probably the second most famous psychiatrist in all of history. So I'm just going to point out, he's got money to throw at this problem. Spoilers, I don't mean to spoil it for you, but it's not going to work. You know, I can't throw money at it. I can't throw intellect at it. I can't throw the best treatment center, best sponsor, best psychologist, best psychiatrist. I'm beyond human aid, and that's what we're going to see with my homie Rowland. I don't think he'd want to be my friend, but I'd be his. Let's see what happens. So who prescribed for him? So he goes all the way to Switzerland to do intensive work with Carl Jung. And he works with him. And it says, though experience had made him skeptical, which is to say every other time he tried to have a look at his alcoholism, he had relapsed. He finished his treatment with unusual confidence. Anyone here get out of a rehab and think, this time is different? Anyone, unusual confidence. There's something about this time that's completely different. And here's what feels different. It says his physical and mental condition were unusually good. He's feeling well physically. His thoughts not going so crazy. It's all good. And it says above all, he believed he had acquired such a profound knowledge of the inner workings of his mind and its hidden springs that relapse was unthinkable. So he was armed with, he's feeling better, he saw the best of the best, he did some intensive work, but he is armed with self-knowledge. He knows himself. He's worked through some of his trauma. He's addressed his triggers. You know what I mean? He's done his CBT and DBT. A lot of those things did not exist, but I'm just throwing in some modern equivalencies. You know what I'm saying? He's worked on his inner child. He's treated his daddy issues. Can't relate. I'm just teasing. But he's done all this work and he knows himself so well that relapse was unthinkable. Have I ever had that experience where maybe it was pain, maybe it was a horrific experience that I went through, going to jail, getting out of the hospital, going to treatment, or, getting like the fanciest sponsor in the room and think, man, there is no way that I could ever relapse. Relapse is unthinkable. But one of the things that I've been emphasizing is, I think so, because I do a lot of things and I'm a little all over the place, but I hope I have been emphasizing, is that for an addict to relapse, that is not an abnormal condition. For an addict to relapse, that is inevitable. So if I am here today and I'm abstinent, but my illness is not treated, I will relapse. But our guy Rowland, he's like, there's no way I'm going to relapse. Nevertheless, he was drunk in a short time. Oh man, any of us know what that's like? You go to treatment and immediately get out of treatment and you're going at it again. Does that sound a little familiar for some of us? Anyone ever do like therapy, like a counselor, a therapist, and you get loaded right before or right after the session? They don't like it when you do the right before. Well, we don't tell them about the right after. We don't mention that happened because then they'll want to focus on that. No, thank you, right? Nevertheless, he was drunk in a short time. And what kicked in for him was the obsession of the mind, which again is inevitable for people like us. And it says, more baffling still, he could give himself no satisfactory explanation for his fall. There was no reason for him to relapse. He had a look at all the reasons that there were, and there weren't any. He analyzed his behavior. Again, he has self-knowledge. He was like, I have no idea how or why this could have happened. So he returned to the doctor whom he admired. And I will point something out. He's got to go back. You know what I mean? They did have letters and telegrams and all that sort of stuff, but how the story is being told is that he went back. He didn't send a strongly worded email, in all caps. He had to physically go. He's an American. He had to go back and to Switzerland and see this guy. So he returned to this doctor whom he admired and asked him point blank why he could not recover. He wished above all things, so he wished more than anything else to regain self-control. So he wants to get well. So if you're here today and you've been relapsing and it feels like you don't want it hard enough, that's not what this thing is about. My desire to stay sober cannot keep me sober. My fear cannot keep me sober. My self-knowledge cannot keep me sober. All the money that I've thrown at all the problems cannot keep me sober. We're going to see what can keep me sober, but none of that works. And it says he seemed quite rational and well-balanced with respect to other problems. Can't relate. At no point in my life has anyone said, Paige, she seems quite rational and well-balanced. But here's a guy who has the ability to show up logically, rationally in all other areas of his life, but not this. It said, yet he had no control over alcohol. Why was this? He begged the doctor to tell him the whole truth, and he got it. And this is the truth that Rowland Hazard is getting. But this is also our truth, our experience. If I have the illness that Rowland Hazard is going to be diagnosed with. So it says, this is the truth. In the doctor's judgment, he was utterly hopeless. Hopeless. I want to emphasize hopeless. If you're writing in your book, highlight it, underline it. Hopeless. Because the thing about being hopeless is we talk about hopelessness, we talk about powerlessness, but I don't think we explain all the time what that means. To be hopeless, to be powerless, is not that for me to use, I can't control the amount that I take. It is not that once I start, I cannot stop. It is not for me to drink or to use is to die. That is a part of it. But what makes me hopeless is that I will. What makes me hopeless is that I will relapse. I will use again. I will drink again. I will pick up again. That is what makes us hopeless. And that's what it means to be powerless. And that sort of changes how we might see that first step. It lights a fire under us. And we're going to see the fire hasn't quite got lit for our homie Rowland, but it's going to get lit. And when that fire gets lit, it drives me into the course of action that will produce our solution. Spoilers, the solution, it's a spiritual awakening. I couldn't contain myself. I'm not good at surprises either, Peppa. And also, how do I get there? How I get there is the purpose of the 12 steps. And if I can see that a relapse is inevitable and it is imminent, it is going to happen, man, that gives me some I got to move. I've got to go quickly and thoroughly because I need this experience. So it says, in the doctor's judgment, he was utterly hopeless. He could never regain his position in society, and he would have to place himself under lock and key or hire a bodyguard if he expected to live long. That was a great physician's opinion. And I can tell you for a long time I would read that and I'd be like, whoa, bad news, Rowland. That sucks. You got to be locked away. I couldn't afford a bodyguard. That's out of budget. Locked away, you give me an involuntary stay. Okay, fair enough. Some of those. But that I would read as bad news, Rowland. But let's go back to the very bottom of page 24. Very bottom of page 24, it says, when this sort of thinking, the sort of thinking that we are describing is exactly what happened to Rowland, the obsession of the mind, that he has a drink in his hand and he almost doesn't know how it happens. It is the thought that I have when I am sober that takes me back again and again to the first drink or drug. When this sort of thinking is fully established in an individual with alcoholic tendencies, that alcoholic tendencies is the allergy of the body. So if I have the obsession of the mind and the allergy of the body, this is me. It says he has probably placed himself beyond human aid and unless locked up may die or go permanently insane. It's not bad news, Rowland. It's bad news, Paige. Rowland's prognosis, his diagnosis, is my prognosis and is my diagnosis. And I don't got Rowland money. Do you know what I mean? I can't lock myself up somewhere nice. I can't afford a bodyguard. You know what I'm saying? So that prognosis is not limited to Rowland. That is my prognosis. Let's go back to page 26. And it says, and so that is the looming hopelessness at the bottom of 26. And then here's the hope. But this man still lives and is a free man. He does not need a bodyguard, nor is he confined. Thank goodness. Thank goodness, because I could not afford a bodyguard. And even though I don't smoke, I don't consume nicotine or anything like that anymore, God separated me. That was an absolute miracle. I do know what it's like when you have people that will decide when you're allowed to smoke or not. And that's the worst, So that's my empathy for the smokers. I get you. So that good news. You can have your nicotine whenever you want. He's free. He doesn't need to pay for a bodyguard. He doesn't need to lock himself away. He is free and he can go anywhere on earth where other free men may go. Without disaster provided, he remains willing to maintain a certain simple attitude. The attitude that I need to maintain is that God, higher power, creator, the spirit of the universe, that is what keeps me sober. That's the attitude. I'm not doing it. There's a power that is doing it. And my responsibility is to take the course of action and continue to take the course of action that will allow me to have that experience and will allow that experience to grow. That's what I need to do. And I love this next paragraph because I promise you, the book, Alcoholics Anonymous, is not expecting perfection. The book is going to meet me where I'm at time and time and time again. And it's not going to leave me there, but instead is going to take me where I need to go. And here it is. Some of our alcoholic readers may think they can do without spiritual help. So if you're like, yikes, the solution is, G-O-D? No, thank you. Not for me. Like, I'm not open. Ugh. That's okay. The book is meeting us there, and it's going to help us overcome this. It says, let us tell you the rest of the conversation our friend had with his doctor. The doctor said, you have the mind of a chronic alcoholic. And again, I want to point out the mind. What is making this thing hopeless is the obsession of the mind. The fact that he is going to go back to it no matter what he does. If he does not have the spiritual awakening. He doesn't know about the spiritual awakening yet. And he says, I have never seen one single case recover where that state of mind existed to the extent that it does in you. Again, what is the famous Dr. Carl Jung saying? He's saying you're hopeless. People like you do not recover. People like you are doomed to die of this illness. That is bare bones what he is saying. And it says, our friend felt as though the gates of hell had closed on him with a clang. And I want to point something out. The gates of hell don't swing both ways. You know what I mean? The gates of hell have closed on him, and it's ringing. And for me, even though the steps do not exist in this moment, this is what I would like to refer to as a step one experience. This is Rowland Hazard's step one experience. He sees that he's trapped. He sees that there is no way out. The first step is not warm and fuzzy. The first step is exactly that I am in trouble. That the relapse is inevitable and there's nothing I can do in and of myself to stop it. And you can almost hear him say this with absolute and utter desperation. He says to the doctor, is there no exception? He's almost begging the doctor, do you have an answer for somebody like me? And he says, yes, replied the doctor, there is. Exceptions to cases such as yours have been occurring since early times. Here and there, once in a while, alcoholics have had what are called vital. Now, the word vital is of the utmost important, life-giving, spiritual experiences. So that is our solution in Cocaine Anonymous. Our solution is a spiritual experience, spiritual awakening, psychic change. That is our solution. And this is what it looks like. It says, to me, these occurrences are phenomena. This thing that you can't quite explain or describe. And the indescribable nature of the spiritual experience is part of why in step 2 we have so many metaphors in the chapter, We Agnostics. And it says so this is what a spiritual experience looks like. And for me, this is one of the best definitions. There's others that are phenomenal, but this is one of the best. They appear to be in the nature of huge emotional displacements and rearrangements. So these big emotions that were driving me, we're going to talk about that. It gets rearranged. And a lot of those, those big emotions that aren't going so well, whoop, off they go. And it says they appear to be in the nature of huge emotional displacements and rearrangements. Ideas, emotions, and attitudes, which were once the guiding forces of the lives of these men, are suddenly, I'm going to point out suddenly, it does not take long to recover. It does not take long to have a spiritual experience. It does take work. It does take work, but it does not take long to get well and to have this experience. Ideas, emotions, and attitudes which were once the guiding forces of the lives of these men are suddenly cast to one side, and a completely new set of conceptions and motives begin to dominate them. And I'll tell you what that looks like. From my experience, I'm the sort of person that I would wake up in the morning. Consciousness would just be beginning to take place. And the thoughts were already going in my head. And what were they saying? I suck. I'm the worst human being that ever lived. I should effing kill myself. I don't fit and I don't belong. And that was on me all day. And suddenly, that's gone. And a new set of thoughts begin to dominate them. How can I help others? What a gift it is to be alive. I want to know this power more. Do you know what I'm saying? That's an example. Man, another one is to be wrapped up in the bondage of self, and I'm in pain, and all I can see is me and my pain, and I can't see past my pain. And suddenly that pain is gone, and a new world comes into view where I'm okay. and I'm at peace, and I'm at ease, man, that is available to each and every one of us. That is what it looks like. It says, in fact, I've been trying to produce some such emotional rearrangements within you. I was trying to give you this thing. He says, with many individuals, the methods which I employed are successful, but I have never been successful with an alcoholic of your description. I can't give this thing to you. One of the best psychiatrists in the world is saying, I can't give this thing to you. And I'm going to talk very briefly. Man, there's a lot I want to talk about, and I'm like, I don't think I got time for all of it, so I'm trying to move quickly. It's recorded, and you can play the recording on a slower speed if you need. I know, I'll go fast. But the chapter that is entirely devoted to the second step, we're going to see it in 2 months. And in 2 months, we're going to go through the chapter. I assume this format's continuing on. I'm going on a limb with that. But that is going to focus on step 2. And the title of that chapter is We Agnostics. Not to the agnostic, not for the agnostic, but we agnostic. And the etymological origins, that's right, I'm using what precious time I have to talk about etymology, which is the study of the history of words. The etymological origin of the word agnostic is Greek. And eg means without, and gnosis means knowledge. So in step 2, we are talking about all of us who approach the second step are approaching step 2 without knowledge of what? Of God. Now, I'll point something out. The gnosis that we're talking about is not. Now, I know you lovely, wonderful people would never do this to your sponsors, but it's not the, I know. I know. It's not that head level knowing. I know you guys have never said that. You would never. If we know, why is our sponsor telling us so many times to do it? But what we're talking about is not that head level knowing, but that heart level knowing. Now, in step 11, we seek to improve our conscious contact with this power. The word conscience, its etymological origin is Latin, so it's a different language system. But in Latin, the con means with, and the chus or sire means knowing. So between step 2 and step 11, I go from without knowing to a with knowing. So the purpose of these 12 steps is to bring about that with knowing, that spiritual experience that I'm not going to have at this moment in the book, but it will happen if I take the course of action. Now, to tie this in to Carl Jung, there is a famous BBC interview of Dr. Carl Jung. And in it, he's asked a series of questions. One of the questions is, growing up, did you believe in God? And he says, yeah. Growing up, I believed in God. And then they said, do you believe in God now? And he says, no. And there's a bit of a pause. And then he says, I've got no need for belief. And there's another pause. And he says, I know. And that is what we're after here. I'm after that deep heart level knowing, not an intellectual exercise, but an experience. Just as much as I needed the experience of the drink or the drug, I need the experience of this power. And how do I get it? Well, how I get it is the 12 steps. Bear with me. Upon hearing this, our friend was somewhat relieved. Our homie Rowland, back to our homie, for he reflected that after all, he was a good church member. He's like, oh, a spiritual experience, cool beans. I go to church, I'll just hang out, you know? Cool beans is what he said. It's a direct quote. I'm just kidding. He didn't. And it says, this hope, however, was destroyed by the doctor telling him that while his religious convictions were very good, it's great that you have a belief because you're already open to it. It says in his case, they did not spell the necessary vital spiritual experience. And what he said is like, listen, the odds of this thing just happening to you are the same odds as you getting struck by lightning. You can't hang out in a church pew and hope this happens for you. You've got to go out and seek it. And That's the difference. You see, for us, I can't hang out in the rooms and hope this experience happens for me. What I have to do is I have to seek it. Now, the difference between Rowland and us is the path is laid out for us. It is laid out in this book through the tangible, practical actions of the 12 steps. That is how I get it. Rowland Hazard, what he did was he got involved in what was known as the Oxford Group, the Oxford Movement. And they weren't focused on alcoholism. They weren't focused on drug addiction. There was a gentleman that got sober in the Oxford Group. His name was Bill Pickle, and they did sober up some people just by happenstance, but that wasn't their aim. Their whole focus was about having a deep experience of God, a deep experience, a surrendered life to this power. That was their deal. And he's like, wait a minute, I need one of those or I'm going to die. And he gets involved in the Oxford Group. He gets involved in this group. He takes a course of action, which later became our 12 steps. He has enough of an experience to carry the message to a gentleman by the name of Ebby Thatcher. Ebby Thatcher, who was on trial for some drunken-related shenanigans. I don't think I have quite the time to go into all of it. But he carries that message of our solution and our program of action to our guy, Ebby Thatcher. If you're trying to remember Ebby Thatcher, his middle name is Throckmorton. Woo! You'll remember that. I'm just here to help with, when the next time Spiritual Cartel has a trivia night. You know what I mean? I'm just helping. But so what happens from there is he goes and he carries that message to Bill Wilson. Ebby Thatcher carries the message of the solution, spiritual awakening, the program of action, which later became our 12 steps, to Bill Wilson. Bill Wilson had been hospitalized 3, but like in the book, 2 times previously, from which he learned the nature of his illness. He learned that it was a hopeless condition. He learned that he had the allergy of the body. He learned that he had the obsession of the mind. And in that moment, Bill Wilson has the 3 pieces of information that we need to know in order to recover. He knows what the problem is, and he knows that it's hopeless. He knows what the solution is, and he knows how to get it. And so if we're here today, we have that same course of information, but we've got to then take action. That is what is asked of us. So, top of 28, it says, here was the terrible dilemma in which our friend found himself when he had the extraordinary experience, which, as we have already told you, made him a free man. He had the extraordinary experience. He had an experience, not a belief, not an idea, not a conception, but an experience. I need an experience. If you're like me and you know what it's like to show up to, like, imagine you showed up to your dealer's house or you showed up to a pub and it was one of those days where you just need a drink or you just need a little something, you know what I mean? And imagine you show up at the pub or you show up to your dealer's house and you just need something, and your dealer or the bartender offers you an in-depth discussion about the imbibing effects of drugs and alcohol. Did you know that the liver metabolizes alcohol in this way? And did you know when you consume cocaine, the brain produces a stimulating effect and an increased source of energy, which increases your heart rate? You know what I mean? You'd be like, shut up and give me the good stuff. Right? And that's what it's like here. If I'm sitting around and talking about the experience, but not having the experience, I need to have this experience because freedom comes. Just like, I thought I found freedom in the bottle. I thought I found freedom in the pipe. Maybe you found freedom in the baggie. You know what I mean? That's where freedom was in the experience. It's like that here. Freedom is in the experience, not in the idea. It says, we in our turn sought the same escape with all the desperation of drowning men. What seemed at first a flimsy reed has proved to be the loving and powerful hand of God. And man, because I go 40 minutes. Is it cool if I go to the hour or is it 40 on my timer? Yeah, whatever. I'll go until somebody, you'll let me know. What'll happen is I'll keep going until you politely tell me to shush. You can do it in the chat. Thank you. I'm just trying to smush as much in as I can at the very end. Oh, gosh. So you see what happens. See, I don't know about you, but for me, I was born, and I was born thirsty. You guys know what I'm saying? Man, I was like learning to tie my shoes in kindergarten, and it was not socially appropriate to give a kindergartner crack cocaine and a little bit of rum. You know what I mean? They were not giving that to me, but I needed that because I was wound so tight at age 4 and age 5. And I remember being in the 3rd grade and experiencing suicidal ideation. I've experienced that sense of I don't fit, I don't belong, I'm not like you. You guys know what I'm saying? If you guys know what that's like? Man, I'm different. I'm not like you. And I spent my whole life thirsty. And some miracle of miracles, I find a little creek. And it's just a little creek that's running. And I see some other people going up and they're taking sips and they're getting refreshed. And I think, why not me? And so I walk over to that creek and I take a sip of the water. And man, that water is good. You know, it is what I was looking for my entire life. Man, that is water, and it is good, and it begins to quench my thirst. And I start going back to that creek, and I go back to it, and I go back to it, and I go back to it, and I wade further and further in. And after a while, in that little riverbed, there is a current. And that current starts, and like I didn't even notice it. I start going back to that river, that little creek, it turns into river, and I don't even see that it's turned into a river. But that current begins to take me. You guys know what that's like? The current takes me, and I develop. And to be honest, for me, it was pretty quick that current took me. This allergy, where once I start, I cannot stop. And you see, it has taken me. And it takes me again and again and again. And I don't know about you, but for me, that there were these consequences, and these consequences began to pile up on me again and again. Man, I crossed lines I never wanted to cross. I did things I never wanted to do. I hurt people in ways I never wanted to hurt people. I betrayed trust that meant absolutely everything to me. And my feet can't touch the bottom anymore. And I see that beyond a shadow of a doubt, man, that the longer that I'm in the river, the stronger the current is. And I got to get out of this thing. And I do everything I can to not take that first one, to get out of the river. And I am swimming, but the current is too strong. And if you've ever seen a river at flood, man, it starts to pick up and you can't see the bottom, and it is muddy waters and there is debris. And what begins to float along is some debris, and I grab a hold of the debris. There's maybe like a chair or a door, in Titanic. The issue is buoyancy. The issue was not surface area. Sorry, I was going to go on a whole Titanic reference. I'm like, I don't have time. Focus page. The argument, he could have gone on the door. No, he couldn't have. Buoyancy, not surface area. I'm not going to die on that hill, but the hill that I will die in, that is not an appropriate sex ideal. Actually, I'm going on this tangent. I don't have time for it. Here's the thing. She was engaged to another man, so she's not physically available to be in a relationship. She was about to off herself off the boat. Goodness gracious, she's about to kill herself. She is not emotionally or spiritually available to be in a relationship. They have a whirlwind love affair. I think we all relate to that. And then at the end, he sacrifices himself and kills himself for her. That is not a healthy ideal. We can aim a little bit higher. I'm just throwing that out there. Just throwing that out there. We needed to get her connected with some solid recovered women so she could take a program of action and leave the guy she doesn't want to be with, Anywho, so I'm grabbing a hold of that relationship that is the door. Anyone ever do that? I'm not going to use. I love him. Ugh. The door doesn't have the buoyancy and I'm drowning. And then a log comes by and I'm trying this log, and maybe it's the log of self-will, or maybe it's the log of relationships, or maybe it's the log of just going to meetings, or the log of therapy, or the log of a geographic, and I'm grabbing a hold of all of these things, and I grab a hold of them, but man, there's no grip. I eventually always slip off and fall into the riverbed again and again and again. And I come to places like this with people like you. And what I see is what appears to be a flimsy reed in the riverbed. And as I am like barreling along this river, I hear this sound. And that sound is the sound of a waterfall. You know what I mean? I'm about to come to my end. There is no hope. There is no escape. Not only, I might not even make it to the waterfall. You guys know what I'm saying? Like, I've got to get out of here, and I might not even make it. And I grabbing a hold of everything and anything, and nothing is working. And I see a flimsy reed. Paige, this is the flimsy reed. You're telling me that the solution is a spiritual awakening? That sounds stupid. It could not possibly apply to me. This flimsy reed, to work the steps, have a spiritual awakening. Man, I don't want it. I don't want to do it. But because the river's got me, I'm drowning. I can't hold my head above water anymore. I'm being taken, and the frickin' waterfall's coming soon. I grab a hold of it out of pure desperation. And you see, in the second step, I'm just believing that reed exists. And I reach for that reed. I reach for it. And then what happens, and step 3 is the decision to reach for it. Step 4, I begin to reach. And step 5, my hand begins to close on it. In step 6 and 7, my grip tightens. And what happens in steps 8 and 9 is in my hand, that reed transforms into the loving and powerful hand of God. And in steps 10, 11, and 12, I find myself lifted out of the river to safety on the riverbed. That is what happens here. Now, my life depends on continuing to have my hand out, reaching out for those who are drowning, those who do not know there is a way. But that is the metaphor. That's what's happening. I get taken out to safety, and all that is asked of me, I'm not doing it. I can't swim my way. I can't overcome it. I grab a hold of this course of action. And it says a new life has been given us, or if you prefer, a design for living that really works. A design for living emphasizes that this is a way of life, and it works. It works. That's why we do this. We don't do it because it is poetic or flowery or sounds like a good idea. None of it sounds like a good idea. I mean, it looks like a good idea for you guys, but I don't want to do it. We do it because it works. It works every single time. I'm willing to do it. All of it, it works. The distinguished American psychologist William James, in his book Varieties of Religious Experience, indicates a multitude of ways in which men have discovered God. And the book Varieties of Religious Experiences, it's a course of lectures that were given at Edinburgh University by the American psychologist William James, who was taking an intellectual study of spiritual awakening, spiritual experiences. And it is not known for being a light read. It's known for being a little dry, which means obviously I think it's so much fun. I genuinely love the book Varieties of Religious Experiences. And in it, he describes a number of things that are pertinent. The first is he describes a spiritual experience, and he describes it, yes, absolutely. He describes it in a number of ways. And he describes it not based on what he thinks it should look like, but the observable phenomenon. The other thing that he looks at and he studies is he talks about how a lot of the people who have had these experiences find themselves having he uses the word backsliding in behavior. And the takeaway for people like us is that this cannot be a set it and forget it program. Anyone here ever stay well on one drink, one hoot, one hit, one line? No, I can't stay well on one experience. I've got to continue. I got it. Thank you. Continue to seek and to have. And the other thing that I just like is he talks about a variety of meditative practices that were alive and well at that time in the early 1900s. So, focusing. It says, we have no desire to convince anyone that there is only one way by which faith can be acquired. If what we have, and I'm going to point this out, learned, felt and seen means anything at all. So it says if our experience, not our ideas, not our beliefs, but if our experience carries any weight, and that's all that we have to share, means anything at all, it means that all of us, whatever our race, creed, or color, are the children of a living Creator with whom we may form a relationship upon simple and understandable terms, as soon as we are willing and honest enough to try. So those terms really is the 12 steps. And all I need to do is I need to try at this course of action, these 12 steps. And it says those having religious affiliations will find here nothing disturbing to their beliefs or ceremonies. There is no friction among us over such matters. And here's the thing, if it is truth, and I mean deep spiritual truth, you'll find it in any faith tradition. And this is what we're seeing. These 12 steps do not clash with any unhealthy spirituality or with any healthy spirituality. And that tells us we have struck on something that is deep and powerful truth that can apply to each and every one of us. So it says, we think it no concern of ours what religious bodies our members identify themselves with as individuals. This should be an entirely personal affair, which each one decides for himself in the light of past associations or his present choice. Not all of us join religious bodies, but most of us favor such memberships. Very quickly, keep in mind, this book goes out in 1935, and if you don't have anyone that's further along the path, you don't have a sponsor, you only have this book. So if you wanted to grow spiritually, there's no YouTube, there's no meditation apps, there's no spiritual cartel to log in. Where would I go? Well, probably my local church. That's to contextualize that suggestion. If you're like, I don't want to do it. Cool, you don't have to. That's what it's saying. In the following chapter, there appears an explanation of alcoholism as we understand it. Then a chapter addressed to the agnostic. Many who were once in that class are now among our members. Surprisingly enough, we find such convictions no great obstacle to a spiritual experience. What I believe does not matter as strongly as what I do. I can be held back by belief, but if I take action regardless of, I will get well. Further on, clear-cut directions are given showing how we have recovered, underline, highlight, recovered. That is the solution. These are followed by 42 personal experiences. Each individual in the personal stories describes in his own language and from his own point of view the way he established his relationship with God. That's what we're here to talk about. How did we develop this spiritual awakening? Through these 12 steps. These give a fair cross-section of our membership and a clear-cut idea of what has actually happened in their lives. We hope no one will consider these self-revealing accounts in bad taste. Our hope is that many alcoholics, addicts, desperately in need, will see these pages, and we believe that it is only by fully disclosing ourselves and our problems that they will be persuaded to say, yes, I am one of them too. I must have this thing. And our hope is that over this month that you have begun to awaken to that. Yes, I'm one of them too. I must have this thing. Thanks for letting me share.